Welcome to Milspouse Matters, the podcast dedicated to telling the stories of military families, one spouse at a time. Need some inspiration as you navigate military life? Moves, deployments, raising military kids, keeping your marriage together, career issues, and more? Get an encouraging, humorous outlook from a spouse who's been there for 30 years and more moves than she can count. Join host Jen McDonald, author of the book You Are Not Alone, Encouragement for the Heart of a Military Spouse who knows that we're stronger together. Grab your cup of coffee or a glass of wine and sit back and relax as Jen talks with military spouses, both new and experienced, who will give you real-life hope and support for your own Milspouse journey.
Hey guys, this is Jen. I just wanted to give you a little update before we get into this episode. As I was recording this with Wendi Iacobello of Strength for Spouses, Hurricane Florence was making its way towards them. So we did end up recording it on the phone, so the audio will be a little bit different, but I think it's still such great content, and she has a wonderful story to share. Also, to let you know that they did make it through okay. They did not have any damage. They lost power, but everything, they were safe, and their belongings and everything were good. But continue praying for their area as it was hit with some major flooding. And as well, everybody that was in the path of the storm, you were in our thoughts, and you continue to stay in our prayers.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Milspouse Matters. I am Jen McDonald, and I want to thank you so much for listening. Just a reminder, you can help us get the stories of military families in front of even more listeners by leaving a review and subscribing in Apple Podcasts, in other words, iTunes. And you can also listen to the show on Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn, and on milspousematters.com. So after some technical issues and finagling a way to get this recorded in spite of Hurricane Florence bearing down, I am so glad to be talking today with Wendi Iacobello. Did I say that right?
Yes.
And sharing her story with you. So here's a little bit about Wendi. She's an Army wife and a Beagle mom. She has spent the last 9 years as an adult educator, has a Bachelor of Science degree in early childhood education, and a Master of Arts in instructional technology. She's a blogger, freelance writer, and instructional designer. In her free time, you can usually find her volunteering at USO's Storytime, outdoors in the garden, running, or playing fetch with her Beagle named Daisy. Wendi is extremely passionate about helping others find their inner strength by sharing her experiences, insight, resources, and inspirational stories on her blog, Strength for Spouses, which is strength, the number 4, and spouses. You can find her on Facebook, Instagram, and Pinterest, and her site, strengthforspouses.blog. So welcome, Wendi.
Yes.
And I'm so glad to have you here. Like I said, you're kind of right in the path of Florence bearing down. So how is everything going for you guys preparing for that?
Right now, everything is okay. I think Florence is hanging out on the coast of North Carolina right now. So we're just feeling a little bit of wind and some clouds. And I think probably towards the wee hours of the morning is when we're going to feel a lot of things here from the storm.
So you're just kind of in the waiting game right now, watching to see where it's going to head?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah. So, well, I hope everything turns out well, of course, and for everybody else that's involved in that. One thing I was curious when I was reading your bio, I had to look up what an instructional designer is. So maybe you can explain a little bit about that for others who might not know what it means.
Okay, sure. An instructional designer is someone kind of behind the scenes who is creating curriculum and working with subject matter experts, such as someone who is a history professor or a biology professor. Those would be the subject matter experts in their subjects, and an instructional designer would work with them to make sure that their courses that they're offering online meet standards for people with disabilities, and also to make sure that they are engaging for the students' learning, and they really help design those things to keep the student in mind and the learner in mind.
Oh, that's so cool. So like you're working with colleges and places like that?
Yeah, that's typically what an instructional designer does, but in the field, it's pretty wide open in the corporate world, in public ed. Everyone has instructional designers now because of the popularity of taking courses online and how convenient that is.
Oh, that's really cool. And that has got to be just like a field that's exploding for you, I'm sure.
Yes, it is. It is an awesome field, and a lot of those jobs, not all are remote. Some are work from home, which is awesome for military spouses.
Yeah.
But a lot of them are also working within the company office because they also want you to be able to train faculty or to train people in person as well as online.
That's so cool. My dad was an educator for years, well, he still is, and was a principal, and now he kind of went into semi-retirement, and he's teaching college courses online. He just loves it. It just fits so well with his lifestyle. He can walk down the road and go to this little co-working space, or he can work from home, and I think it's just so cool. Anybody, and I work from home, and I love it just because of the flexibility. So I think that is just the path of the future. I really do think, or even where we are now, I think. So,
yes, I believe it too.
Yeah. Well, tell us a little bit about you and your family, and how long have you been a military spouse?
I've been a military spouse for almost 3 years, and I met my husband online, and it's when online dating was starting to become a little more accepted, but people were still kind of, had those feelings about it. So we met online, and we exchanged numbers, and we emailed back and forth, and then we texted back and forth for a while, and I just thought, man, this guy seems pretty cool talking to. I need to meet him in person and see if it's there. And so I suggested we meet. We did, and we've been inseparable since. I always tell him he had me at his tattoos and the laughter, because he always made me laugh from day one.
Oh, I do think that's the key ingredient to marriage. I really do. We've been married a lot longer, but we, 30 years. And I tell my kids that too. It's like, if you can't laugh together, I don't know. I'm sure there are studies to bear that out, but I think it's the key to a good marriage, honestly. Yeah, that's so cool. So you're a pretty new spouse. And so was your background, did you have any background with the military or know what you were getting into?
I had, most of the men in my family have served, like my grandfathers and my dad, but I wasn't. My dad only did 4 years, and so we didn't move around or anything because he was with the National Guard. So I think we've always had a great appreciation for military personnel and those that served in my family.
Yeah.
And but I definitely did not know what I was getting myself into when I became a military spouse. I mean, and I'm coming into this life much older than most do, and it's really been a learning curve for me as well.
So what was the biggest thing that surprised you, or maybe even a couple of things? Like you said, you got married a little bit older, so you probably were somewhat set in your ways and kind of had your life figured out. So then you come into this, and it's like this big upheaval. So I'm curious to hear what was the biggest, challenge for you.
Well, as an educator and kind of my personality, I was looking for that checklist to tell me, okay, I'm about to be a military spouse. What do I need to know? What are the unspoken rules I need to follow and things like that? And I had wished, I was like, I need a checklist. I need to know what to do. And there wasn't one. And so I just started trying to read as much as I could online and joining groups on Facebook to try to figure things out. But it's really been a learn-as-you-go kind of process. And, that hasn't always been easy.
Well, and I think, too, once you think you've got it figured out, I don't know if you guys have moved yet, then you move or you go, they change their jobs or they deploy, and a new curve is thrown at you. So what you thought was, okay, here's my checklist for this. Oh, I need a new checklist, It completely changes. Have you found that?
Yes. Yes, and I guess, when I was dating my husband and, when we met and he was in the military, I just thought, I'm perfect for this lifestyle. I'm independent. I can do my own thing. I can stand on my own 2 feet. And so I thought, I've got this. I'm a strong woman. And then when I married my husband and became a military spouse, I was like, maybe I'm not as strong as I thought I was.
And I think, too, for me, I just, I felt that way. And then I and I don't know if this happened to you at all, but maybe it's just me. Some of the older ones I'd go, kind of poo-poo their experience, maybe not so much, but just thinking, okay, well, that's the way you did it, but we know better. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a better way to do it. And then coming kind of back around full circle, it's kind of like with your parents. Oh, you really do know some stuff. Even though maybe I wouldn't have done it the way you did 20 or 30 years ago, I actually could learn from you. And I don't know if you have found that with, you know, quote, senior spouses or not. Or maybe it's just me. I don't know.
I mean, reading a lot of the stuff that all the military spouse bloggers put out there from their own experience is truly helpful. And I think, you know, that is such a valuable resource because we all write about things that we've been through to try to help someone else. So I think that has been truly beneficial.
So you learned from that. That's great. And then you started your own outlet with the Strength for Spouses. And so maybe talk about how that came about.
Sure. And that really stemmed from that learning curve as coming into the military world as an older military spouse and being a newbie. And just, you know, again, thinking, oh, I've got this. I'm an independent, strong woman, and then realize that I'm not as strong as I thought I was. I need to really figure some things out, and how am I going to find that inner strength when my husband deploys or when TDY and Murphy's Law happens and all heck breaks loose on the home front, you know. So the Strength for Spouses kind of bloomed from that and thinking, you know, how can I encourage others to develop that strength and find these different outlets to help them get there.
And are you finding yourself connecting more with people through that? Or do you go to also, you know, real life meetings and stuff, or do you do both?
I do a lot of different things. I try to involve myself in the local community here in Fayetteville. And also I volunteer, and I'm a part of many groups online where I get to interact with military spouses all over the world. And that's really helpful, and I've met some really great friends that way. And, you know, exercise is another really big one for me. You can meet people. There's exercise groups at different bases, and fitness is really a big part of my life and really helps me to get through different times. It helps with anxiety. It helps with a lot of things. And really just being outdoors, that is really helpful too. And I think all of those things really stem around self-care, making sure that you're taking care of yourself and trying to figure out what's going to work for you because everybody's different. Yeah,
I agree. And I think the older I get, I see the benefit of being outside. and like you said, exercise. I was not a runner until I was 45. I had just never thought that was something I could do, but it has totally changed my life. I don't know if you're a runner. Or what. Yeah. And I'm not a fast runner. And, you know, I don't think anybody would look at me and go, well, that's obviously a runner. But, you know, runners come in all shapes and sizes, but it has really changed just even like self-esteem wise of, wow, look what I can do. If I couldn't run a half marathon, you know, what else can I do? So I do think that all ties in. Okay. So, I know that you write some about pregnancy loss and infertility. And we talked a little bit about this before. I really would like to explore that a little bit because I think this could really help other spouses who've been through that. I lost 2 pregnancies as well. And I remember I was much younger, just feeling very alone. You kind of feel like you're the only person that's going through that. So, and when I lost my first one, my grandmother called me, and I'll never forget this. I was in a room. I had all the curtains drawn. I was depressed, and I didn't want to talk to anybody. And my husband came in and brought the phone in, and he said, "It's your grandma." And I got on the phone with her, and she went on to tell me how she'd been through it. And I had no idea until then. And I think maybe we're better now about talking about it because it isn't uncommon, I guess is my point.
Pregnancy loss is a hard thing, and you do feel alone. And when you're a military spouse and you're childless and you don't have children, you really feel like you don't fit in so many circles. You kind of you isolate yourself a little more from that, just from your own insecurities and things like that. And I do write about it because I thought sharing my story about how it all went down and happened and how I felt I thought that might be able to help someone else to not feel alone, because when I went through that, and it was such a dark time in my life, and I just thought to myself, I cannot even fathom the thought of being younger and going through that, number one, and also not reaching out for help and suffering in silence. My heart breaks to think there might be any person or and a military spouse going through that alone, because it's not something that you need to go through alone. You really need to reach out for help. And I definitely reached out for help, and I've written about it a lot. And I've found a lot of people came forward and commended me for it and said that it helped them in some way. And I just thought, that's why I did it, because I wanted to help other people from it.
And where did you find support?
I found support through Military One Source. They were really helpful in getting me connected with someone. And also the Stephen Cohen Center. They have a location here in Fayetteville, and they're continuing to build these centers all across the United States to help military spouses and family members, and also veterans. Right now they don't do active duty, but they do the family members and also veterans.
Is that counseling?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yes.
That's so good.
They were amazing. They were truly amazing and helped me really turn things around.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And I know you mentioned about feeling isolated. I mean, so many things in the military world are family oriented. And if you haven't been through that, or you have a family, or you have children, you may not even realize how that's coming across. So for events and activities and things like that, what would you suggest to help make sure that everybody feels included? Do you have any thoughts about that?
I think that if they could do more focus on couples, I know they have couples retreats and things like that, but offer more things for just the couples, and you're going to have more people coming out that are childless, that maybe don't come to all of these events, but some of those family events are mandatory, and so you go.
Yeah.
And you're like,
mandatory
okay,
fun.
I have to be here. But it's not that you don't want to be around children when you've been through pregnancy loss at all. It's just that you want to have the option and the choice to choose which events you attend and which ones you don't, because you don't know until you go through something like that what is going to trigger you and trigger your sadness. And I promise, you'll never see as many pregnant people as you will after you've lost a baby. Everybody around you is pregnant, it feels like. Yes.
And you feel like everywhere you turn, there's a baby. Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
Yeah,
that's
and that
good.
makes it really tough. And again, having the choice to choose which situations you put yourself in, because when you go through something like that, you're really sensitive for a while. And you've really got to advocate for yourself and stand up for yourself. And if you think putting yourself in a certain situation is not going to be helpful at the moment, then just don't do it.
Yeah. And I think for people that know somebody that's lost a pregnancy, and a few episodes back, I talked to Chris Barker after she lost her husband about how people can really mean well, and they feel like they have to say something. And for me, people said really strange things to me after we lost our babies, and I thought, you don't have to say anything. Just bring me a casserole, or just come sit with me. Do you know who was one of the best things that ever happened to me? I had been in the hospital. It was a pretty traumatic pregnancy loss, and then I had to be on bed rest for the next week. And my husband's boss, who never had children, I was in my 20s, and he was probably in his 40s. He just shows up at my door. This is the cutest thing. I had totally forgotten about this until now. And so this is back in the era of VHS, tapes. And he came in, and my husband said, Leon is here. And I was like, oh, okay. And he walks in with this bag stuffed full of VHS tapes of I Love Lucy. And he said, I don't know what to do. I'm so sorry. And he said, Steve told me you have to be on bed rest for a week, and I just thought maybe this would distract you. And I did. I watched those all week, and it was the sweetest thing, because he was just so honest. like, I've never been through this. I have no idea what you're feeling, but I love you, and here's something that I hope will help. And if it hadn't helped, fine, I would have just not watched them, but it completely distracted me. It was, I'll just never forget how much that meant to me. So I don't know if you have suggestions for people, for family or friends of someone that's gone through that loss. What do you think helps?
The biggest thing is just the sentiment behind the support that you receive from family and friends. I had a friend that brought over some food and just came and held my hand and hugged me and let me cry.
Yeah.
And she didn't even say much, and
right.
at a time like that, there's just no words. And you just don't say whatever because you're trying to fix it or make it better, because it sometimes makes it worse. Just even telling someone, I don't even know what to say right now, but I'm sending you love, or, if you're in person, tell them, I don't know what to say, but can I give you a hug, or just start hugging them, because that's really, that tenderness and that love is what people need in that moment. They don't need words.
Yeah.
They don't need you to fix it. But I think just showing that compassion and, again, allowing that person to choose what they want to put themselves in, because baby showers were really difficult for a while after that.
Yeah.
And so not making someone feel obligated to go to that is good. If someone kindly, rejects your invitation and sends a gift instead, don't hold it against them, because you know what?
Right.
They don't want to ruin it for you. They're trying to protect you as well as themselves. And
that's good advice. That's such good advice. Yeah, and I think that whole thing of you don't have to say anything. I had people try to explain to me why it happened, and I just would go, this is not comforting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you don't, I've always believed in the phrase, things happen for a reason. Up until I lost a baby, I always believed that. And then when we lost our baby, and we found out why we lost our baby, because our son, who we named Chance, was going to have severe internal and external disabilities, and his heart just stopped. And it was a genetic thing, so that gave us a little closure, but it still didn't, there's no reason why a woman has to go through something like that, to me. There's no reason. There's no mind or matter about that.
Right.
And nothing is going to comfort it. I've had people tell us, well, it's probably a blessing that you don't have a child with disabilities. And I'm like, but it's not us, because our son was a blessing, and he was perfect in our eyes. No matter what his disabilities may have been, he was ours. We made him, and he was loved from the moment we found out. And he would have been perfect. We would have loved him fearlessly, despite the imperfections.
Yes. Yeah. I had people tell me that too. And I have come to terms with the fact that things will not always make sense until we get to the other side. That's my belief. I don't necessarily have to understand. And like you said, it doesn't make sense. And you have to just be okay accepting that it doesn't make sense. And that's okay. You don't have to have an answer. And I do think people, when they're dealing with someone in grief, feel that need to help explain it or fix it. And that's not what's needed in that moment, for sure.
Yes, and I think, too, as time goes on and everything, the biggest, most comforting thing, when you talk about your child that passed or things like that, it makes some people uncomfortable. But to a mom who loved the child so much that she never got to hold, talking about her child is therapeutic. Saying our child's name Chance, and talking about what we dream of what he may have been like is very therapeutic for us, to keep his memory alive. And also, I would encourage those who have gone through this to take this tragedy and turn it into something beautiful. I think God is going to help you do that, first of all. But I also think that, losing our baby has led me to do other things in his name. And we have vowed that we are going to, do something every year on the anniversary of when we lost him to honor him and we're going to put goodness into the world in his name's sake. And last year we donated to a NICU. We donated money to a NICU in Raleigh that my doctor was affiliated with so that we could help another struggling baby. And
that's wonderful.
We put it in his name, and we'll continue to do that because I don't believe that you should let the memory die, and I also don't believe that you should look at it as such a horrible, awful tragedy that you should take something from it and turn it into goodness and beauty.
Yeah. It probably takes some time to get to that point, for sure, that you can do that and think of it that way. But that is so wonderful. Well, shifting gears a little bit, I know that you use the hashtag more than a Milspouse, so I'm kind of curious how that came about and what was the motivation behind that.
Certainly. Hashtag more than a Milspouse was born to inspire and pat military spouses on the back. It was created to combat the awful stereotype that military spouses are kind of put into. And, you know, I have been put into that since I married my husband. And I was just floored that somebody put me into the dependa category. And I was like, you obviously don't know me because I had my own house and my career and everything before I ever met my husband. And
okay, so hold on. I'm just curious because you were professional, you had your own thing going, and so then you got married, and then all of a sudden, did you feel like people looked at you differently and put that label on you? Is that, oh my goodness.
Yes.
Okay.
And I just did not appreciate that, and that's, I tried not to get too angry about it and just tell myself, you know what, the people that are putting me in that category obviously don't know who I am at all. They don't know the things that I've accomplished and what I will be accomplishing, you know, in this life and everything. And I just, you know, I created that too to help those who have also been unfairly judged and put into that category as well. So I know there are so many military spouses who are ambitious, who are driven, who stay actively involved in their communities and volunteer, who are in school right now trying to better their lives and their chances at a decent career, who are advocates in the community, who are taking care of their families, and so much more that military spouses do and don't always get credit for. I know. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I just don't think that we are solely defined by our spouses, and we shouldn't be defined by we're just married to a service member, and that's all of who we are. We're so much more than that, and that's hashtag more than a Milspouse. You are more than just married to a service member.
Right. Well, and I unfortunately heard from some younger spouses where we were last stationed, and I had one mention to me. She said, and she's a stay-at-home mom, and she's taking care of her kids and keeping the family connected and together while her husband's traveling and deployed all the time, and that is so important too. And she said, I'm afraid to go to the commissary, like in my sweats, and in case somebody wants to take a photo of me and post it on one of those sites. And I was like, you know, this just makes me so sad that it's become this, that now, and they're afraid to ask questions in like Facebook groups because they don't want somebody to screenshot it or say that they're stupid. It's a stupid question. And we've just lost so much with this snarky, sarcastic, really hateful, this term dependa and this way of looking at spouses and categorizing them. It's so awful. And I hate to even give it any kind of, you know, airtime at all, but I think it's important, like you said, that we recognize that all of them most families are doing the best they can. And it's, you know, to have that come from within our own community is just so sad to me that somebody has to be afraid of being in public in like their yoga pants or something.
I think so too. And hashtag more than a Milspouse is to say, hey, I see you. I see the good things you're doing. I see the impact you're making in your community. I see you struggling to take care of the children all by yourself. And, you know, Murphy's Law happens on the home front. Your spouse is miles away. You're in a new place. You don't know anyone. You know, it's to say, hey, we see you. We know, we know you're doing good things, and we're giving you credit for it.
That's wonderful. And you're using it mostly like on Instagram and Twitter? Is that where it is?
Yes, and it's a little bit on Facebook as well. And, you know, I encourage others to start using it. You know, as you're doing things, if you pat yourself on the back because you deserve it. And, you know, you're doing so much military spouses on the home front that no one sees except you know what you do. And, And, it's me patting you on the back too using that, because I want to empower this community to be their best self and to get involved in their communities and go back to school and educate yourself and build something for you, because we can't, as a military spouse, you need to have something going for yourself, because you're going to be spending a lot of time alone. And so you need to have your own interests and your own things going, because it makes the time pass by so much better. And you're not wrapping your whole entire life around your husband. You're building something for you, which is also for your husband and your family as well.
Yeah. And I think, too, when you're in the throes of military life, you think that this is the way it's always going to be. And it's good to have yourself set up to have other interests, because this time will end. And, I'm on the other side. My husband retired last year after 30 years. And really towards the end, I was doing more and more that was non-military spouse related, which is funny because this whole podcast is military spouse related. But you know what I mean? It's, kind of not just going to his stuff, and you just need to set yourself up to have a life after the military, because it will end. So I think that's such an important message for sure. Well, what has been the response to this hashtag More Than a Milspouse that you've seen?
I think there's a handful of us using it right now, and it's starting to trickle up and starting to grow slowly. I think most of the military spouses who are in the blogging world and kind of in the entrepreneur world, have really embraced it a lot, because they also know and have been a part of that, being put into a box as a military spouse. And so they really like the empowerment piece behind it. It's really the encouragement to other military spouses to be their own person, and you are more than just married to someone in the service.
Has anybody responded negatively, like thinking that it looks like a negative term to you? I'm just curious.
No, I haven't had any pushback from it at all, so that has been awesome.
That's good. So then you've landed on a really good term then, because people aren't misunderstanding it. That's awesome. That's so good. Talk about, I know that you are a writer and that you have editing services. So what are you working on right now?
Well, I just did a redesign of my website so that I could add in some of those services and everything. I love writing. I was a language arts and technology teacher for a very long time, so that is my love. It's my passion, and that is what landed me into freelance writing. And so it's something I never expected, but as I see others joining the freelance world as well, and people writing ebooks and different things like that, and as military spouses are going back to school, I want to offer those services because that is my strength. Writing and technology, I've got you covered. And so I want to help people who do not love writing, who are college students, especially military spouses. I want to help you learn the art of writing and knocking out those papers, because there will be so many of them. And then the editing services is also for people who are writing books or ebooks and need to hire an affordable editor. I want to make that very affordable so that I can help people that are starting out, just like me.
Yeah. Well, that's so good. And I think it's so great, because I do know a lot of spouses that, have that, quote, portable career, and the freelance writing, editing, that is a very portable career. So you're setting yourself up.
Yes. And I think good grammar is critical for building an audience and building your reputation. If you're a writer, if you're trying to write a book, anything like that. And learning the art and the craft of writing, if you're a college student, is really important, because it's a part of the college experience, and being able to put your thoughts on paper appropriately is a really important life skill.
And you can find out more about that on Wendi's website, which is Strength for Spouses, and we'll repeat it again at the end for sure. So if you could go back, so you've only been married a handful of years, and so this is probably very fresh to you. If you could go back and tell yourself anything to prepare for as a brand new military spouse, what would you say to yourself?
I would say fasten your seatbelt and hold on because you're in for a wild ride. That would be the first thing I would say. But seriously, I would tell myself before I became a military spouse to cling to your fate always. Be patient, be flexible, and always set and achieve goals for yourself no matter what.
Yeah, that's really good. And I'm assuming, because you probably do engage with younger spouses, is that sort of the same advice you give to them, to the younger families?
Yes. And the biggest thing is creating a life for you too. Just because you're married to a service member does not mean that your goals need to be on the back burner. It may mean that your path to those goals might be a little bit different. It might mean if you have kids and your husband is deployed, your spouse is deployed, and you're busy on the home front, it might mean that, hey, you might only be able to take one class a semester to finish your degree and whatever that might be. But getting started on those goals is the most important thing you can do for yourself. No matter how slow you have to go to those goals, just taking that step towards creating something for yourself is so, so important.
And baby steps, like you said. And it is kind of, it's not that straight upward slope. It's that jagged up and down. And there are going to be seasons, too, where you don't feel like you're making any forward progress. But if you look back at the whole of it, you did, you know.
Yes, I definitely believe that.
Yeah. So do you have any upcoming projects you wanted to talk about? I know you said that you redesigned your site, and that's a big job. That's for sure.
Yes. Really, we're going to continue this campaign for hashtag More Than a Milspouse. I'm going to start offering some products on my website eventually with the hashtag or some Strength for Spouses stuff to try to encourage and remind military spouses that you can find your strengths and you need that inner strength to get through.
Oh, that'd be a good T-shirt. You probably already thought of this. With the hashtag on the front of it or on the back of it to just get people talking. See, there you go. I have a product for you. I'll order one. Like, I've already thought of that. You're not that great. Well, before we close, I've been doing what I call a quick 5 questions to just show another side of you and let listeners get to know you. And so basically it's just going to be 5 questions Wendi did not know about ahead of time and just hopefully a quick answer. So here we go. Okay. The first one is, would you rather be the funniest person or the smartest person in a room?
I think I would rather be the smartest.
Yeah.
And I don't know the reason why. I'm not really a funny person. Probably by accident maybe sometimes, but not on purpose. Yeah. So I think I identify with the smarter part than the funnier part.
Oh, that's your answer. That's good. And see, I'm just like, I don't know. I think it depends on your birth order too, but that's getting too far into it. So we won't overanalyze that question. So, okay, what's your favorite weather, hot or cold?
Oh, this is a good question because it's been a tough summer here at Fort Bragg. But I'm going to say I really like the warm weather a lot.
Yeah. Me too. See, you don't have to shovel anything. And you have air conditioning and sweet tea. So what more could you ask for? Especially where you are. So the next one is, if you could instantly be an expert on any subject, what would it be?
Oh, wow. One thing that has always intrigued me is the brain. So if I could be an expert at, the mysteries of the brain and everything, that would be pretty cool.
That's a good one. Okay, here's one that's totally different than that one. What is your favorite breakfast food?
Well, I am in the South, and I'm a true Southerner, so I'm going to have to say bacon.
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to say grits. Where did you grow up then?
I grew up in North Carolina in the western part of the state. Okay.
So just an aside, my husband is from Georgia, and I'm from the Southwest, and I had never even, I don't think I'd even heard of grits other than like kiss my grits, which I didn't know what that meant until I met him. And then, and they're eating grits for breakfast, and it's like, oh, these are actually really good. But bacon, yes, I agree.
Yes.
Okay. So the last one, who is the most famous person you've ever met?
Let's see. I'm going to say Mario Lopez, and that was fun.
Oh, wow. So why did you meet him?
He was here in North Carolina in Raleigh for the Southern Women Show, and he was their big guest many years ago, and so we all stood in line and got his autograph and got to meet him. AC Slater from Saved by the Bell.
That's so funny.
It was pretty awesome. Yeah, he was really nice.
Yeah. And we've had the chance to meet some celebrities just through USO and type stuff, and it's always fun when they're normal, because we've met a few that are not very nice and like give that whole diva thing that there's a reason there's that stereotype. So it's nice when you meet them, they're actually nice people, right?
Yes, it really was.
Well, that's awesome. Well, again, you can find Wendi on the Strength for Spouses blog, or let me say that again. Strength4spouses.blog. You can find her on Facebook, Instagram, and Pinterest at Strength for Spouses. And I don't know, did you have anything else you wanted to add, Wendi?
I'm new on Twitter, so you can find me there as well, but don't expect a whole lot of tweeting going on yet because I'm still a little newbie there. Yeah.
I find Twitter to be interesting where it's because it's real time. I have not found the best time of day to tweet. I don't schedule it. I go on there when I have time and then I forget about it. But yeah, it's kind of hit or miss with Twitter, but it's a totally different audience. It's really cool. So
yeah, so I'm very new and I'm very afraid. So if you don't see a lot from me, it's because I'm being very cautious about what I put on there.
Well, we will look for you in all those places. And thank you so much for joining me today, Wendi. In spite of all the technical issues, we ended up doing this via phone call just because of some computer stuff. So hopefully y'all can hear this okay. But thank you for joining me.
And thank you for having me, and thank you for working through the difficult tech issues, and now we have the storms and all of that.
Well, and I definitely wish you all the best with that coming, and hope y'all come through that okay, for sure.
Thank you.
And hey, everybody, thanks again for listening to Milspouse Matters. Remember to leave a review, subscribe on iTunes, and you can drop me a note at jen@jenmcdonald.net, or connect with me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Pinterest. See you next week.
Connect with Jen at jenmcdonald.net or on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. You can also purchase her book, You Are Not Alone, Encouragement for the Heart of a Military Spouse at Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, and other booksellers. Love the show? Don't forget to leave a review on iTunes. Until next time, have a great week.